Let's go! It's time for the talk to you. 'Cause when it comes for, it's all we're gonna do. If all green is always on the sea, it was gonna always bring to life. So get ready, get ready, 'cause here they come.
I'm ready to talk about that soap opera known as the New York Jets. We do it every week, and this week, he's back for a second week in a row to break it all down with us. It's Super Bowl week. We'll talk Super Bowl with him as well. It's the one, the only, Mr. Nick Faria. What's up, Nick? How are you?
How's everything going, guys? Great to be back on.
To be talking Jets with you, my friend. And we'll get to the Super Bowl a little bit later in the discussion. But
Lurch, real quick.
Yeah.
Our conversation with Nick is brought to us by.
St. Agnes Florist today. That's right.
Yes. Thank you very much. No, just wanted to sprinkle in some
Test
flowers
question
there.
for me there.
Yeah, give some flowers to Nick.
Yes. And by the way, yeah, and it's great that you mentioned them, Paul, because we are now, let's see, what's today's date? The 5th, 9 days. Good old Valentine's Day. And Valentine's Day, of course.
Oh, boy.
Flowers,
That's coming up quick.
Is the primo gift. So, yeah, go see our friends at St. Agnes right here in the greater central New York area and get yourself some gorgeous flowers for Valentine's Day. Yes, sir.
Real quick, I know we're going to be off and people are going to click in and say, where's the Jets? Where's the Jets talk? But real quick, so Nick, your beautiful wife, the balloons are still behind you. You celebrated her birthday. And, I used to tell my brother this, who his birthday is one of my brothers. His birthday is on January 8th. And I used to say, boy, did he get screwed? The parents buy the gifts and they must just split them. Half on Christmas, half on birthday. And he gets screwed. As opposed to me, my birthday's in April. They get me a full Christmas load. And then when it's birthday time, full birthday time. Is there any split ski that happens here with the wife? Like her birthday is so close to Valentine's Day. Do you just get to go, sweet, they're so close, so you kind of give a split fill?
Yeah, I mean, she's going to be working on Valentine's Day, so I'm kind of off the hook there. Don't have to really worry about that. Yeah, listen, it's always kind of where we're at a certain point. We're big on dinners and experiences, so it's not so much gifts. It's more, hey, let's go out to eat. Let's do this. Let's do that.
Nice.
It works out well for us.
Yeah. St. Agnes might sell balloons too, although I hear there's a great helium shortage in our world today. So I don't know where that's all going. And if you hadn't pointed that out, Boy Green, I thought for some reason that Nick was just growing gold horns out of his head. Which is
on
the screen
that way.
Kind of a cute thing. All right. Anyway, we'll get past all the pleasantries and let's get right into the serious business of the day. Let's start with this hiring by the Jets of Frank Reich. So obviously they've been looking for an offensive coordinator. They get a guy with a lot of experience. It seems to be lukewarm reception from a lot of Jets fans. Give me your thoughts on whether or not you think Reich is a good fit.
If they brought Frank Reich in last year when Aaron Glenn was first hired, I think the conversation around Glenn and the conversation around the coaching stability or instability, for that matter, changes dramatically. Let's just be quite frank. I think the biggest mistake Aaron Glenn made last season was he wanted experienced coaches, but he wanted on the defensive side and not on the offensive side. The spot where, quite frankly, he had less experience in as an overall coach, as a corner, as a defensive coordinator, as an assistant, as a scout, didn't have a lot of experience on the offensive end. And to me, that was his biggest mistake. Not bringing in the experience on the offensive side kind of hurt him to the point where it didn't matter what the plan was this offseason. There was going to be speculation. And I think if most Jet fans were told at the end of the regular season, Aaron Glenn is going to call plays and he's going to bring in Frank Reich as his offensive coordinator. Most people would say, okay, those are legitimate improvements, brought in more experience. That's something we can sign on for. But it came with a very fractured process, a very convoluted process. They interviewed, 10, 11 coordinators on defense. They interviewed 5 on offense. The expectation originally was Teddy Rangstrom was going to stay. Then it turned out, actually, we're going to make sweeping changes on the offensive side of the ball. The Jets' process was completely bungled in the month of January. But I kind of said it on Boy Green's on his show this morning. Just because the process is flawed and the process was flawed in this case, does not mean the end result is going to be bad. It's kind of like you're answering a math problem, and you're trying to do the equation, and you'll completely butcher the equation, but somehow you end up getting the right answer. Does that fracture the thought process that goes into it? Does that fracture the fact that you got the right answer? Of course it doesn't. All it means is you kind of bungled your way forward and still got a little lucky. The Jets are hoping for a little bit of luck here in terms of correcting their overall process and moving forward with it. Not saying that it won't work, but certainly if you were to ask fans at the beginning of the offseason if this would be the plan, they would have signed on for it. It's just the other stuff that happened in between that everyone stops and goes, why couldn't we just do this from the beginning?
Nick, I can't lie. There was a few times during my schooling that a math teacher would see what she attempted to believe was an equation. I thought I was going, beep, boop, bop, my work on the side. And then the answer was right. She went, yeah, sure. The answer's right here, but I don't know how the hell you got here, man.
Happens to everybody. To everybody. And again, it very well could be that the Jets process is so flawed that everything just blows it up in their face throughout 2026, and they're looking at a new coaching staff next year. That could very well happen. There's also the side of saying, well, listen, Frank Reich has decades of experience at the quarterback position. He's someone who can help bring in someone to stabilize this offense, put up solid numbers, and actually put this team in a position to be far more successful than they were last year. That's certainly on the table as well.
So my question is this, Nick, because, they had Tanner Angstrand, and there's a lot of the analytical nerds in the back of the room that say, ooh, if you look at this and this and this, there's a lot of upside, a lot of potential there. So I just need to ask you this as blunt as possible. Is Frank Reich an upgrade over Tanner Angstrand?
I don't know. And it's a cop-out, but my gut tells me from where Frank Reich is now, he's not. He's just not the upgrade the Jets need. The Jets' problem last year on offense had less to do with schematics and more to do with the players. They wanted Justin Fields to be their quarterback, and it blew up in their face. They felt that Justin Fields, listen, we don't need to spend money on a number 2 receiver because he's not going to target him anyway. And he didn't all year. But they didn't have a quality passing game to really stabilize anything on the offensive end. But if you look at the tape, scheme-wise, players are running open. They're running wide open, and the quarterback's not delivering the football. The final 5 games of the season, which a lot of people look as a detriment to Tanner Angstrand, you have an undrafted free agent who should have never have seen the field in his rookie season. Someone who may not be on an NFL roster next year, starting the final 5 games. It's not just, make it happen with this guy that we're throwing at you. It's when you don't have the talent, it doesn't matter what scheme you're going to be running, it's going to be poor. You look at the Los Angeles Rams, after they win the Super Bowl in 2021, the following year, where'd they go, 5-12? They completely missed the playoffs. That's not, Sean McVay, his scheme becoming sour and stale and playing poorly. It was the players that weren't good enough that year. So to me, Frank Reich's scheme is very, very old. It's an older West Coast style scheme that has fit this league for a very long time, but it's not where the league is trending in 2026. So if we're talking about schematics, I do think that Tanner Angstrand is better prepared than someone like Frank Reich. Play calling experience, it's not close. Frank Reich obviously has that over Angstrand. But scheme-wise, without the talent, it could get dicey for Reich in this offense if they do not infuse this group with as much talent as they need to.
Jets also making some other interesting hires as they complete their staff, and one very popular hire coming over from the Steelers. Talk about that, Nick.
Yeah, Carl Dunbar. I mean, this is a home run hire overall for the defensive line, a group that was one of the worst, if not the worst defensive line in the NFL last season. Obviously has experience with the Jets, had great experience with Wilkerson and all those guys at a very young age. But to me, it's not about what he did in New York back in the early 2010s. It's about what he did recently with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You look at the defensive line at Pittsburgh. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Benton, and then you have their first-round pick, Derek Harmon. These guys have been rotating in quality defensive lines for the last almost decade since Dunbar has been a coach there. To me, the Jets are going to be infusing this unit with young talent. They're going to be drafting players, maybe 2, 3 defensive linemen upcoming in April's draft. When you have a coach like Dunbar who has worked with young defensive linemen in the past, can nurture them in a positive way, this is a complete home run hire. It's the kind of hire people expected Aaron Glenn to be able to make when he first came into the job. I think this is one that should be celebrated, and a very smart one upcoming for a Jets team that's going to look a lot different in that position group.
I don't know if you could speak to this at all, Nick. This is a little above my pay grade to get down to this nitty-gritty level, but the hiring of Carl Dunbar has led some schematics people to say that they believe a shift is about to happen with the Jets, where they go back to that 3-4 base, where you get your, and Carl Dunbar would know this from the player he worked with, and your Damon Snack Saracen. You get your big fatty who's a true nose, and then you have sort of stand-up outside rushers back in the old days of Rex Ryan. They said the Carl Dunbar hire, based on his history of working in that scheme, is where the Jets would lean. Are we being too presumptuous assuming that's going to happen? Do you expect that to happen? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's more of just the Jets are going to look multiple. They're not going to have a base. Oh, they're going to be 3-4, 4-3, 5 down linemen. It's going to change drastically with Aaron Glenn as the coach, because the Jets defense is not going to be about, okay, this person is at right defensive end and this person's at left defensive end and this person's our nose tackle, this person's our 3 tech. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be, we have talent, and we're going to throw everyone around to confuse the opposing quarterback, and we're going to be blitzing from everywhere possible. It's not, oh, how many defensive linemen do we have? What's our run fit going to look like? It is, we are going to be playing a multiple style defense, 3-4, 4-3, 5-2. It's all going to look differently from a week-to-week basis. And I think that's where modern defense has to be. Offenses now are changing drastically left and right. And if defenses aren't willing to adapt, they are going to struggle. So I don't think it's really a stable base defense the Jets are going to want to run. It's going to look different from a week-to-week standpoint.
Talking with Nick Faria, our Jets insider, Manchild Show with Boyd Green Digital, at MC Show Digital. If you want to subscribe, we'd love for you to join our growing community. Nick, I understand, dare I say, you're a contrarian in one area. So let's discuss, because I don't think in a million years that the Las Vegas Raiders are not going to take Fernando Mendoza. But you seem to be one of those few people out there willing to stick your neck out and say, oh, they can botch this thing up and just hand him right over to us here at number 2. So let's talk about it. What makes you think that the Raiders are going to make such an egregious mistake at the very top of the draft?
Oh, first off, that has been my take for the last month, and I've even admitted it's on life support now that the Raiders have hired Kubiak from Seattle.
Kubiak, yep.
The fact that, and again, it's kind of off the baseline of, there are reports out there that Max Crosby is going to be traded. When Max Crosby goes, what talent does this team have on the roster? It is even more barren than the Jets have in terms of talent. They don't have an offensive line. They don't have a receiving core. Their defense stinks. Their defensive line stinks. Everything stinks when it comes to Las Vegas Raiders. And if they were to hire a defensive-minded individual, a guy like Evero from Carolina, who was in the running for that role, you could see a path where they could say, listen, we are not a quarterback away. Let's not throw him into the fire when our team is just so bad everywhere else. Let's get the best available player, who's Arvell Reese or Ruben Bain, instead of just gambling on a quarterback that, while he is the number 1 quarterback in this draft, he is not the clear-cut number 1 prospect. Everyone that I've spoken to has said, listen, great intangibles, pocket awareness is solid, his touch on passes is excellent, but he doesn't have the biggest arm, and he really struggles under pressure. So he's not the can't-miss guy that Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence or some of these other guys were. And if they brought in a defensive-minded guy, that's certainly on the table. But now with an offensive guy, this guy can say, listen, I want my quarterback now, and we're going to develop him the right way. That kind of changes the argument. Now, when it comes to the Raiders, anything can happen. And I've said this repeatedly. You look at their history. They're the only team in NFL history in the Super Bowl era to draft a punter and a kicker in the first round. They had CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy waiting for them, happily waiting for them in the 2020 draft class. And they said, no, we want Henry Ruggs. In 2009, you had Jeremy Maclin, Michael Crabtree as the top guys, and they said, no, we want Darius Hayward-Bay. They like the old school Al Davis type of player. When it comes to a quarterback, that's someone with a massive arm and someone who can make plays with his leg. They were all in on Jamarcus Russell in 2007 because it was the Al Davis kind of guy. Mendoza is not the Al Davis kind of guy by a long shot. So to me, yeah, it's probably on life support. It's probably not going to happen. But if there is one team that can bungle this up and just say, you know what, we're going to go in a different direction, we're not ready yet, it's the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, kind of draft. Sounds like they kind of draft like my New York Knicks. They're in the same kind of boat over the years, although we are in better times.
They drafted Cleveland Farrell with the 4th overall pick.
Oh, my God.
And it was – and most people had Farrell as a second-round guy, and they drafted him 4th overall.
Good.
And again, new regime, spy tech, very well respected. Tom Brady obviously has an influence, which I think is an absolute farce. You have him being able to influence an organization like this, but Matt Ryan can't be on CBS. That's ridiculous. But the way that I look at it, the way that I see it, the Raiders are the Raiders. And if they fall in love with a guy because of their intangibles, that is a very Al Davis thing to do.
It's the Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. We're presented by Northeast Roofing Professionals. Today's show brought to you by our friends at St. Agnes Florist. We are approaching Valentine's Day. Good time to think about our friends at St. Agnes. Let's just take 30 seconds, learn a little bit more. We'll be right back.
Well, hello, how do you do? I got a feeling I'm falling for you. Well, hello, what do you say? I think we can make it a beautiful day. We're gonna make it a beautiful day.
Well, talking with Nick Faria, our Jets insider. Way too early prediction here, Nick. Okay, since we were talking about Fernando and maybe, your argument is starting to sink into quicksand here about the Raiders not taking him. So the Jets, who will they take? Who's the way too early prediction for the New York Jets?
It'll probably be the best non-quarterback in the draft, and right now that's Arvell Reese out of Ohio State, an off-ball linebacker, but the potential is there for him to be a Micah Parsons type of player without the baggage that Micah Parsons had back at Penn State. Because, again, people need to remember, Micah was a top 5 prospect in that draft class in 2021. There were a lot of problems off the field that kind of pushed him down to where the Cowboys were at 11 or even I believe it was 12 to be able to make that selection. So Reese doesn't really have that same baggage, at least to my understanding right now. And certainly he is the best non-quarterback in this draft class. If you bring him in, you're bringing I want to say like Alex Anzalone type of player where he will be all over the field and can also blitz and can also rush the passer in a way that the Jets haven't really had at this point in a long time.
Nick, I just keep hearing that commercial from St. Agnes just a few minutes ago. Well, hello, how do you do? And it's very catchy. And I'm thinking now of the quarterbacks. Who are we going to be giving flowers to? Who are we going to try to court? Because now that we have Frank Reich, it could hint at the types of quarterbacks that the Jets are trying to identify and trying to bring in. So, Nick, is that what I just said true? Are we preparing
absolutely.
some flowers to give to a certain type of quarterback? Who fits the dating profile? Tall, dark, and handsome? What are we looking for?
It feels
All
like
right, so
to me, Nick, before you answer that, there's a lot of ugly ducklings out there. So which one's the least ugliest duckling? If that even
that's-
exists?
So let's go through this, right? So he was the offensive coordinator with Philadelphia. They had Carson Wentz, Nick Foles. When he went to Indy, he had Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Wentz again, Phillip Rivers, And then he went to Carolina. He had Bryce Young.
Yeah.
The common denominator for most of those guys outside of Bryce Young, big, tall, athletic, big arms. Foles, Wentz, Luck, these guys had massive arms when they were led under Reich. So the projection is that they want to have someone big, tall, big arm. To me, the easiest answer to give is that they will acquire Jacoby Brissett. And I think most people, you follow the team, you listen to the NFL, most people will agree Jacoby Brissett is probably going to be a New York Jet after this hire. They need a veteran who understands this offensive system enough to be able to help stabilize the unit, whether they draft a quarterback or bring someone else in. The other name that I think makes a lot of sense is Philadelphia Eagles backup Tanner McKee. Now, I have been pounding the table that Tanner McKee is a starting quarterback in this league under the proper coaching and with a good offensive line. The Jets have that offensive line. Tanner McKee throws a very pretty football, very accurate, really, really good with the deep ball. To me, he is an old school pocket passer. If he came out in the NFL in the 90s or early 2000s, I think he could have been a first-round pick. The modern NFL looked at him and said, well, if the pocket breaks down, he can't do anything with it. He's not going to run. He can't run. So to me, Tanner McKee is an old school pocket passer that fits the West Coast system that Frank Reich would want to be able to run in this case. So for veterans, it's McKee and it's Jacoby Brissett. But if I were to sort of predict who's going to be the guy, it's certainly going to be Brissett, and then potentially a draft pick in the second round or maybe even the first round as well.
That would be tantalizing potentially if they decided to go in that direction. There's been a lot of rumors, and Nick, we're recording this conversation right now. We'll see by the time it comes out. But at the time of this conversation, there's been some, phrasing from certain insiders that the Jets aren't done adding big names potentially to this offensive staff. So you have Frank Reich, he's COC. The Jets are still looking for a quarterback's coach. They're looking for a passing game coordinator. And two of the other finalists that they interviewed, Greg Roman and Darrell Bevell, there's been some thought that maybe they could transformers and jump onto the staff too. I don't know if there's any direct correlation between those guys and Frank Reich with his career, or there would just be three talented guys here just like, let's just throw them all together here. Is there any real legs to this? Because a few national and local insiders have suggested there is, but Kaz yesterday with Jake Asman, he said, I haven't been hearing that same noise other people have.
Well, it's more of just what do they prefer. I certainly could see a future where Greg Roman is the run game coordinator if he doesn't get offered a job, in 2026. People need to make money, man. So I certainly think Roman would make a lot of sense. I think Bevell would make a lot of sense as well in terms of a passing game coordinator. The one thing you don't want to do is have too many cooks in the kitchen, though. You want guys that Frank Reich is familiar with and can help develop an offensive scheme and develop players at a high level. One name that I kind of mentioned before yesterday was John DeFilippo. Now, DeFilippo was the quarterback coach in Philadelphia when Reich was the offensive coordinator. He helped stabilize the group when Carson Wentz was playing at an MVP level, and then Nick Foles became a Super Saiyan god and outdueled Tom Brady, yada, yada, yada. We all know that story. DeFilippo's had a very long history with quarterbacks. Now, he hasn't coached in the NFL in a few years, since 2021, but he's been a head coach in the UFL. He's been around the game. And if Reich wants someone he can trust to help develop quarterbacks, I do think DeFilippo is probably one of the better options out there that's not going to break the bank or feel humiliated by coming to the Jets. So to me, if I'm looking at where the Jets are going, I do think if there's a fit, it's probably Greg Roman at run coordinator and then a guy like DeFilippo at quarterback coach to help stabilize this offense and build the scheme that can actually work out for this unit in the long run.
Talking with Nick Faria, our Jets insider, all things New York Jets. Nick, I've been asking all of our insiders about the Super Bowl. I know none of our teams are in the Super Bowl, but there is a Super Bowl that's being played this weekend. There are some familiar names, certainly lots of Jets familiar names, including even right into coaching staff. So let's talk about it. The Super Bowl, you're excited about it, and what kind of matchup you think we have here?
Yeah, listen, people are going to be saying, I've heard way too many people saying Seattle's going to win. Quite frankly, this is a redemption game for Sam Darnold, and I really would love to see him go out and defeat the team that of the boogeyman, if you will, that kind of ended his career in New York from the beginning in the Patriots. But the one thing people aren't really acknowledging, Seattle's offensive line is really good. New England's interior defensive line is the best in the National Football League. Christian Barmore and Milton Williams are the two best interior collection of defensive linemen in the league right now, and it's not really close. What they have done in the AFC playoffs is just completely take away an opponent's run game, and I think they're going to do that to Seattle and force Darnold to win the game on his own. So if you're looking at an underrated matchup, it's Seattle's interior line against New England's interior defensive line, which is just an absolute buzzsaw right now. There's a lot of comparisons that are going to be made to the 0-1 Patriots run, where their offense was terrible pretty much all playoffs, but the defense was so historically great that it didn't matter. And I could see that certainly happening in this game against Seattle, because most people have to sit there and say, do we trust Sam Darnold to win this game on his arm and on his mind? And I don't know if I can say that. I know he's had an unbelievable playoff run, but I have serious doubts of him going into a Super Bowl like this as a favorite and out-dueling Drake May and out-dueling Mike Vrabel on defense. I don't see that happening. I know a lot of people are high on Seattle, but my God, they don't have anyone that can block Christian Barmore and Milton Williams at the same time.
So what's your Super Bowl prediction, Nick Faria?
Oh, I think the Patriots are going to win. I think it'll be like 17-16. It'll be low scoring. It'll be ugly. I don't foresee a blowout. I really don't. I mean, most people didn't foresee last year's blowout. I loved it. It was fantastic viewership for me. But it's just one of those things where, do you trust Sam Darnold to make the right plays against the defense that has shut down quarterbacks better than him in this playoff run? That's hard for me to say. And the other piece to it that no one really wants to talk about, who's the number 2 receiver on Seattle's offense? Shaheed, Cooper Kupp, these guys are good, but they haven't been consistent really throughout the year. It's been a collection of guys. What is going to happen when the Patriots take away Jackson Smith-Njigba, which is going to happen? That is going to happen. People need to be prepared for that. JSN is not going to dominate this Super Bowl. I would be stunned if that was the case. Can they find second or third options at receiver that can win these matchups out wide? I don't know if they can.
Fair enough. Nick Faria, always great to check in with you, man. We really appreciate chatting with you the last couple of weeks. We'll see you down the road, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys.